Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. We've got a really interesting discussion to talk about today. I'd like for you to really pay attention because I'm going to go into some pretty serious depth about the myth of Ragnarok, and we're going to see if Ragnarok is talking about right now. Are we going through Ragnarok? And is the new earth that rises out of the ashes of Ragnarok, is that the higher vibration of earth that we believe might be coming? And how do we escape Fenris? Is the earth going to be destroyed? We're going to talk about all of that as looking at the mythology, Norse mythology of the Norse version of the apocalypse. Welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be interesting because, as you know, I mean, we're going through unprecedented times. You know, things have gotten increasingly strange, so fast. It's not like things have slowly come out and our world has slowly over time become strange and different. It went from, for me, going back to, 2018, 2019, it went from just my perception of a normal world. And within a few years, I now am living in the most unbelievable fantasy science fiction movie beyond anything I could have imagined. And so now I'm starting to take a look at this myth, and today we're gonna look at it, and I'm going to read it to you and look at some of the interpretations of it, and I'm finding it very accurate to what's happening. And if what it's describing is happening now is accurate, then the description of what's going to happen seems to line up with a lot of things I've been discussing. So as you know, just a year ago when I first started reaching out to higher dimensional beings through a process called CE5, or human initiated contact with extraterrestrials, I then had my entire reality destroyed as these higher dimensional beings on a daily basis, during the night and during the day, were visiting me and giving me all kinds of information about the nature of the universe, the nature of the human soul, reincarnation, the nature of physics, reality, and a lot of things about what was to come. And as you know, I was told in a lucid dream, I was told that there was going to be an event, a worldwide event that was the people were going to see in the sky. And the result of that was going to destroy people's understanding of religion. And at the same time, it would be a catalyst to shift to the next level. Now, the dream suddenly ended right after, and I talk about the symbol 1 billion times. After having this dream, I went into interdimensional meditation and was communicating with these higher dimensional beings. And I said, hang on, so what exactly is going to be this worldwide event that everybody's going to see in the sky? Is it going to be a fleet of spaceships? And the being said, no. It's going to be a series of solar wave events where light from the earth is going to hit the earth in waves, and these solar waves are going to lift earth up and all consciousness up to the next level of reality. I didn't know what that meant. I decided that maybe I was making things up until I came onto a live stream and I talked about it and I said as much, and people said, no, that's a real thing. It's called the event, and it's called the solar flash. And I went and researched it, and sure enough, people have been talking about this since 2012. And so that opened my eyes, because I didn't come up with that. I would never have thought something like that. My assumption was that the whole earth would shift up, that everything and everybody on earth, including all of the psychopaths and all of that, would shift up to the next level. Now that's a little bit disturbing in and of itself. We got this beautiful new earth. So how do these narcissistic psychopaths who are actively seeking to destroy the earth and doing horrible things, how are they going to magically, go to the next level? And I spent a lot of time saying that's what was going to happen. And people were saying, no, there's other things, the earth is going to shift. There's going to be this doorway between two different earths. And I got very, very offended by that, because I don't like the idea of like a religious judgment. But more and more of that kind of information kept coming to me. And I got some pretty unmistakable messages that, no, what's happening is that the way reality is created is that, like a rainbow, you have different frequencies of light. And physical reality is a frequency. So you can have multiple frequencies of Earth on top of each other. And so it is possible for people on one frequency to, if they shift their internal frequency, they can shift up to the next octave, to the next level. Just to be clear, I have proven to myself, without any doubt whatsoever, that in higher frequencies, it is impossible. I can't stress that enough. In higher frequencies, it is impossible to have any of the things we associate with the negative aspects of Earth. There's no anger, there's no victim mentality, there's no pain as we understand it. Nobody can even think about harming somebody else, because at that frequency those thoughts won't survive. In other words, if you were up at a higher frequency and you started to indulge in feelings of hate, anger, self-pity, you would immediately drop down to the next octave. You would disappear out of that higher octave and you would appear in a lower one. And, so that gets rid of any of the arguments about evil aliens or evil, because anything that's coming from a higher dimension can't operate on that level. And I've experienced that. I know from personal experience that it's impossible for these higher dimensional beings to even think about anything in any way predatory or harmful. So that would then mean that these narcissistic, evil people that are running this earth, if they don't have some kind of massive shift in how they choose to think and act, they can't shift up. They won't. So that means there has to be at least two Earths. So another understanding has come to my mind which makes sense. And let me be clear, it's not that I need to believe any of this. I don't get any personal joy out of believing any of this stuff. And I say that because a lot of people do, especially damaged people. One of the sad parts about all of this, it's very hard to find out what the truth is with something as crazy as I'm talking about, because the people who've been talking about it for 10 or 20 years now are the people who are in the outer fringes of woo-woo new age nonsense, where they conflate their own pain and victim mentality with a mentality of escape. And so they might be telling half-truths. People might be, some of the very people who are talking about the solar flash, based on, I don't need to be right about this either, but based on what I see, if what I understand is true, the physics of all of this, a lot of the people, the self-proclaimed super empaths and the people who clearly have a lot of pain and a lot of anger and a lot of resentment at, people who've harmed them. And I don't blame them for that either, but you can't believe in escaping this matrix while holding on to victim mentality and fear and anger. You can't. So a lot of the people that are talking about it, if what I'm saying logically is accurate, they're not gonna shift up. And so it's very easy to dismiss what's being told. The so-called channelers. I'm sorry, but I just don't. I'm not saying channeling is impossible. I don't think that. I just think that the majority of people who channel are coming from their own fantasies, and it's not. In other words, you have to be a critical thinker. You have to be willing to be wrong, and you have to be willing to look at all sides. And unfortunately, that isn't happening a lot. So a lot of more rational people, like I am, left to myself, are going to dismiss this because it's really hard to believe, and the people who are talking about it clearly have emotional issues. Anyway, I'm getting off track, but so the one thing that's important before we go any further is that this shift that's coming is, as we've said, it's a shift of frequency. And you're going to have to be willing to change the frequency of your literal physical body, because your emotions and your physical body aren't separate. They're one and the same. If you indulge in negative thinking, your frequency in your body goes down, and it can cause health problems as well as emotional and mental problems. If your physical frequency moves up to a higher vibration and you don't fight it, your thoughts will also rise up to a higher vibration. So that is done through action. It's not done by sitting on your rear end and thinking about it. You have to take action in your life. You have to take action in how you choose to respond to your thoughts and your feelings. I'm speaking very clearly now. You have to learn how to choose how to respond to your thoughts and your feelings. If your knee-jerk response is to be negative and angry and suicidal, I'm not judging that. I have all of those same feelings everybody else does. The difference is, do you indulge in it? Also, don't deny it. Not indulging doesn't mean denying. It means learning how to have all of those feelings and internally and externally respond appropriately, and that is done through action and discipline. And that's what this channel is about. So before I forget, if you're dead serious about making this shift and you want to do whatever it is that you can do, then at the very least you need to go on to the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel page and go to the playlists and do the interdimensional meditations, do the qigong, do the Hool breath. By the way, if you're looking for a video, please put your 10 minutes of effort into it. Go on the playlists, learn how to search within the channel, look on both the live and the video platforms, because now YouTube has split it up into two. Make sure you do that before you ask me where to find a video, okay? But if you're even really serious and you want my guidance, if you want to know what I do and what you could do on a daily basis, go to thunderwizard.com, scroll around, and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. It's the videos there are just simply play and do, and there's different phases. And I guarantee you your energy will shift. And if you allow yourself to psychologically and emotionally go with that shift, especially if you're working the 12 steps to shift to 5D that I'm putting on the channel, you will shift. Get the books, Interdimensional Revolution, as well as Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, which you can find on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. They're cheap, so it's not like you're spending a lot of money. There's free stuff, and then there's the subscriptions. So there's no excuse for everybody listening to me not to be doing something on a daily basis. All right, having said that, let's get back into Ragnarok. So Ragnarok, as you know, is the Norse mythological apocalypse. I've talked about it, and I have in the past looked at it as being simply symbolic of the awakening process, which is still true. But now I believe it could be literal. It could be literally what's happening. So we're going to have to put on an interesting hat to look at something that's symbolic and literal at the same time, which is, by the way, true mythology. Unlike the Bible, that is not symbolic, it is trying to be literal. The people who want to symbolically understand the Bible don't understand the Bible was written to be a literal historical truth. It's obviously not. True mythology is this combination of multidimensional subjects that can only be looked at in the third dimension in a mythological way, but it's still talking about, potentially, we'll see, talking about literal truth. All right, so in order for us to do that, I'm going to have to read from some texts. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read from bits and pieces of the Wikipedia page. You judge me if you will, but this way we get to look at the meanings of words, the meanings of names, and I'll give you my understanding about it. So as you know, Ragnarok is where the gods fight against the forces of darkness and they cancel each other out. So the gods and the giants and the negative evil forces, they go up against the gods full on and they destroy each other. And after that destruction of the mutual destruction of the gods and the giants, the trolls, the demons, however you want to look at it, then a new earth is born. And this is what I'm finding very interesting, this new earth that's being born. And some of the gods survive, the children of the gods survive, and it talks about this new earth. So we're going to look at it. This might be a long video, we'll see. So Ragnarok, the term itself, could mean destruction of those, of the elites. That could be one interpretation. Ragna could come from the same word where we get regal, which means, kingly, the elite. And rok could mean destruction. So that could be one understanding of it. Usually these words have multiple interpretations, but that could be one. But it also could mean the destruction of the gods who are reigning, but I think also could be the destruction of the elite. And what I'm finding really interesting now is a lot of the myths that I've really enjoyed. When you read the Voluspa is setting you up for how the gods themselves set up the scenario for this ultimate destruction of the cosmos. And that is very interesting because when we look at what has gone on in our reality, you'll find that out as well. My belief is that a third dimensional Earth was an experiment. It was an extreme experiment that carried with it a lot of risk. So it is my belief that the gods, which by the way, you are a god. If you're in human form, you're a god. You can't incarnate if you're not, which is why it's a waste of time to have any victim mentality. If you believe that you've been placed here by somebody else and that you're being tortured by higher false beings of light, you are so far from the truth of what really happened. You are a god, an infinite god, and before this 3D earth realm was created, you and many other gods came together and decided to create the ultimate school for manifestation. And so you created a very low density vibratory world where all of the little tiny inconsistencies in your divinity were going to come to the surface, and by overcoming that you would become an even greater, more powerful deity. But we said, because I went back and I remember doing this, What we said was, we have to make this uh, more real than most of the other worlds we've created. We have to make it that there's a real risk here, because without the real risk, there can't be any real benefit. And so we're going to have to be, we're taking a risk. And as it turns out, the experiment we bit off a little more than we could chew, let's just say. And so things are falling apart in ways that are affecting all the other worlds. Specifically, one of them is nuclear weapons. Every time a nuclear weapon is detonated, it vibrates through all of the dimensions. And so it's now a threat to the whole multiverse. But for those beings who were able to come here and overcome their challenges, they then become the super gods. They become really powerful, amazing deities. That's what you are, and that is what you're capable of doing if you're willing to drop all of your victim mentality and your narcissism. If you're willing to face your challenges and trust the universe and overcome, that's who you get to be. And what I'm finding is that in the Voluspa, you start seeing that this is being set up. We'll talk about it. So Ragnarok could mean the end of the destruction of the elites, or the end of the gods. So let's see, let me find stuff here I find interesting. This is again Wikipedia. It will entail catastrophic series of natural disasters, including the burning of the world, and culminate in the submersion of the world underwater, which I believe is symbolic. After these events, the world will rise again, cleansed and fertile. The surviving and returning gods will meet, and the world will be repopulated by two human survivors. Again, now we get mythological. The two human survivors are called Lif and Lifthrasir. Lif is the Norse word for life, and it's the feminine. And Lifthrasir, if I'm understanding this right, is the masculine. So life and the partner of life, the husband of life. And so that would mean that we're talking about not this muted life that we live in. This is going to come up with Balder. Balder represents our soul. And the myth of Balder dying and going down into the underworld is a representation of our soul that actually has to be protected by a sheath of electromagnetic energy and then covered over in flesh. So, the real cause of all pain, of all mental illness, is being separated from your own eternal soul. And that is Balder. So Balder is the soul without any of this flesh or this brain or this three-dimensional haze. So Lif and Lifthrasir, life and the husband of life, represent the same thing. Life without any blinders to it, pure, without any of the negativity. So what's going to survive in the next vibration of Earth is going to be life without any of the other craziness that we have to deal with here. Let's see. So, moving on. I'm just going to now read from the text itself, the Voluspa. And I'm going to read, the verse that starts talking about Ragnarok. People just go straight to that. And what I'm realizing is a lot of the things that people take for granted and think happened a long time ago aren't. Bear in mind that the giantess, the seer who's seeing this, sees it from an eternal perspective. So when she says she saw this and she saw that, we think it's something way in the past. For instance, Balder. The death of Balder isn't something that happened in the past. It's happening all the time, every moment. So let's just see. Again, I may have bit off more than I can chew trying to do all this in one video, but so I'm going to start here. I don't know what verse this is. She's talking about herself, the seeress. She says, she saw Valkyries arrive from afar, ordained to ride to the race of the gods. Now, what do you know about Valkyries? Valkyries are these feminine beings that fly over the battlefield and take the souls of the slain to Valhalla. So I want you to think of Valhalla as being something different than what you might think it is. Valhalla doesn't necessarily mean heaven. It may mean this new vibration of earth. Maybe a literal place. The hall of the chosen. And the people who go to Valhalla are those who are willing to die on the battlefield. Battlefield, dying on the battlefield could mean being willing to let go of this third dimension. As you know, every time we get hit with these solar waves, people flip out, myself included. And we go through a lot of intense emotions. Emotions, we might be feeling anxious, we might be feeling afraid, we might be feeling a lot of bliss. But one of the main things that people feel when these waves hit is they feel like they're losing connection to Earth. They feel like they're going to die. So they're not going to die, they're going to die to the third dimension. So now we have these, she says she saw Valkyries. Let's see, where was I? She saw Valkyries arrive from afar. What has been going on? What has been going on recently, in fact, in the news right now as we speak, on your local mainstream news as well as national and international news mainstream channels, people are talking about extraterrestrials coming to Earth. I was very pleased to see that on one of the mainstream channels they were interviewing experts, and they had Dr. Stephen Greer, and I was very happy to hear. You know, my hair goes off to him because he had a lot of restraint, because he was just very calmly saying we have to realize the difference between man-made UFOs and actual extraterrestrials, which hasn't been said on mainstream news. So I was very happy to see that. That at least is now, might become part of the, the discussion about ETs. But Valkyries arrive from afar, and this is now going back to the myth, ordained to ride to the race of the gods. What did I just say? I just said that you are a god. You are of the race of gods. You've come here and become human. They're coming to our aid. And what do Valkyries do? They take the fallen, in this case, those who have died to the third dimension, they take them to Valhalla, the higher vibration of Earth, an actual physical planet. I mentioned this briefly in the last video, but I was listening to somebody's NDE experience who doesn't know of any of this stuff, doesn't know anything about ETs or anything like that. She died and was looking at the Earth and seeing the Earth was going through what we would consider to be like an apocalypse, a Ragnarok. And she was seeing people getting wrapped up in their negativity and their hatred and all of that. And she knew that heaven was behind her, to her left. And she saw all these souls, sort of just like bright souls, just sort of pop up and zoom past her. And she knew that they were going to heaven. And it wasn't until the end of her NDE that she looked and saw that what she thought was heaven was actually a planet, a physical planet. And the difference between those who stayed and those who went had everything to do with their willingness. Did they choose to ascend or not? So now we're going back, thousands of years, and our ancestors are getting downloaded this information, and they're putting it in ways that can be understood over many generations. So I think the Valkyries may actually be higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings, because they arrive from afar, ordained to ride to the race of the gods. Keep reading. Future held a shield, prodder was another, war, battle, weaver, and spear prodder. Now they are counted, the war maker's handmaids, Valkyries ordained to ride the ground. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at this is a war for your soul. It's not a kind of war where you kill other people. You have to die in this war. You have to be willing to die for your own soul. You have to be willing to die to the third dimension. Which raises a whole other thing, is what is the experience of, what's it going to be like? You know, if you got two people and one person decides to shift up and another one doesn't, what's that going to be? What's that going to look like? Is there going to be a dead body? You know, the person physically dies and their soul goes somewhere else. Are they going to disappear? What does that mean? All of these questions, I don't know. I don't have the answer to any of them. I don't even know if it's true or not. I'm just investigating it. Anyway, so then it goes on and she says, I saw fate allotted to Balder. So remember, Balder is the soul that is not covered by flesh, doesn't have a human brain. It's just the pure soul. I saw fate allotted to Balder, the blood-stained deity, child of Odin. There it stood, grown higher than the plains, slender and beautiful, the mistletoe. So the other myth that this is referring to is the death of Balder. And so we're going to see all of this come together. So the myth, I'll try to be as brief as possible, but the myth is that the gods, you know, Odin and Tyr and Freyja and Frey, and they're all partying. They're all just partying it up. This is a theme with the gods in Norse mythology, that the gods actually aren't taking life seriously enough. They take it for granted. And so Balder was Frigga's favorite of all of the deities of her children. And he was bright and shining like the sun. And he was pure and beautiful. And wherever he went, everybody loved being in Balder's presence. Again, we're talking about the soul in its true, your deity essence. You know, when it's not, you know, sullied by the haze of three-dimensional duality. And so the gods were all drinking, and they knew that Balder was invincible, because your soul is invincible. Your soul can't die. Your soul is eternal. And Frigga, the mother of Balder, had gone to every single conscious being in the universe. This is important for those of you who think that your soul can be stolen away or can be, you know, inhabited, or that something negative can ever happen to your soul by some other being. Frigga went to every single being in the universe and made them promise that they would never harm Balder. Except for Mistletoe. Mistletoe she thought was too young, and Mistletoe couldn't make that kind of a decision because it didn't have the maturity to do so. So she figured, Mistletoe, one being out of the entire multiverse, I'll be fine. Balder will be fine. So all of the gods are drinking and they're getting drunk, and they know that nothing can harm Balder. So as they're in their drunken stupor, they say, hey, I know what'll be fun. Let's all see if we can destroy Balder. Balder, get over here. Stand up against the wall. And they're throwing spears at him. They're firing arrows at him. They're throwing hammers at him. They're throwing rocks at him. And whatever it is, it just bounces off of him or explodes. Like he stands there like Superman. Nothing can bother him. And they think that's just very entertaining for them. And Loki sees this and he becomes enraged. He becomes enraged because he realizes that they do not value life. They're not valuing the soul. And this is the human experience. We're the gods. And humans do not value or understand life themselves. They don't they take it for granted or they destroy it. So Loki sees the gods doing this and he becomes enraged. Now, Loki's goal has always been to awaken you to the truth within yourself. That has always been what he does. Nobody likes that. That's one of the reasons people don't like a lot of what I do and say on my channel, because I will point out that in you, and people don't want their narcissism and their fears and their laziness to be so directly, put in their face. So that's why a lot of people don't like me. Same with Loki. Loki loves you so much, he wants you to know the truth, and he doesn't need you to like him. So he's the trickster. He will do whatever it takes. If he will press to see. Remember I said, you came here as a god to find out those little inconsistencies within you that you normally would never experience in infinity. But in this intense crucible of earth, those little tiny flaws in your character, even though you're a divine being, come to the surface, and Loki picks at it and he pokes at it. And he does that to get a response out of you. And the response is either that you're going to go, you're right, that's something I need to look at. And then he opens up the universe and shows you the truth. Or you want to defend that and you get angry at him, in which case he will deceive you so that you will follow that to your destruction. But that destruction will be your liberation, because the death brings liberation. So Loki himself doesn't do anything good or bad. He just points out the weaknesses within you. And it's up to you to decide how to respond to that. So as the gods are getting off on watching Balder getting hit with stones and spears and, fireballs, and he's standing there like Superman and nothing's bothering him, Loki overhears Frigga in her pride and arrogance, saying that, I didn't make mistletoe promise, but that's okay. I can, take care of that. So he goes, now we can see everybody's weakness here. So he goes to Balder's brother, which is ignorance. Now, ignorance, Hodr, and Balder live together. It also could mean innocence. It could mean, just being, easily, I forget the word, where people can easily just convince you of anything, just very innocent and ignorant, but he's blind. It means he's blind. So the blindness. So, but they live together and normally, and they're perfectly fine with each other. And blindness, Hodr, doesn't have any negative feelings towards Balder. But Loki goes to him and he says, hey, how come you're not playing the game with everybody else? And he says, I'm blind, I can't see. And Loki says, no problem, I will help you. I will guide your arrow. Don't you want to be part of the gods? And he goes, yeah. But what, of course, Hodr doesn't see because he's blind is that Loki gets a sprig of mistletoe and puts it right on the end of the arrow point. And then guides it, and blindness, ignorance, pulls back and kills Balder on the spot. And this is why Balder then had to go under the earth. Your ignorance, your blindness, your inability to truly understand who you are is what makes you have to now experience three-dimensional reality through this fog and pain and dualism. And this happens just before the reason why I'm saying this is because she talks about this just before she starts talking about Ragnarok. This is all leading up to how Ragnarok came to be. The gods are full of themselves and blind and don't honor and respect their own most favorite being, because all the gods loved Balder the most, but they didn't respect him. They didn't honor him. They took him for granted. You, as a divine deity here on this earth, you also take your life for granted, and that's why you're full of pain and full of misery and full of narcissism and full of victim mentality, why you're unable to forgive people that hurt yourself, why you're unable to see the divinity within yourself. That's the result of this whole thing we're talking about, your inability. And that's because this three-dimensional reality was meant to be perhaps the impossible place. This is where gods come to achieve the impossible, to awaken to their truth amidst the worst possible conditions. All right? So the seer is talking about Balder because that's what's setting us up for what is coming. So, and then it goes on after imagine that. She references that myth of Balder's death. She goes on to say, from that tree was made a fatal arrow of sorrow, though slight it seemed. Hodr shot it. A brother was born early to Balder, Odin's son avenged when one night old. I don't know what a lot of this means, but we'll keep going. He never washed his hands nor combed his hair before Balder's adversary was borne to his pyre in the fen hall. Frigg lamented the doom done in Valhalla. So your soul was already in that higher vibrational state, and it was ignorance that pulled you down. The ignorance of your own awareness is what pulled you down here as well. Frigg lamented the doom done in Valhalla. Would you know more or not? Talking about herself, she goes on and says, she saw a bound form lying under the grove of springs, resembling the body of wily Loki. Now, in other myths, Loki goes into the chamber of the gods. They're all partying. Again, they're all partying and drinking, meaning that they're not honoring their divinity. They're getting drunk. This drives Loki crazy. He sees their hypocrisy. He sees the things in them that they need to do to evolve. So he goes into the hall of the gods and he starts pointing out everybody's hypocrisy and their laziness. He starts pointing it out to them and they get furious. The thing is, he's right. Every time he says something about somebody, he's dead on, 100% right, and they can't tolerate it. Again, this is one of the reasons people don't like listening to me. And so even Thor, the only person that could shut him up was Thor. But the gods got so upset with him that they chased him down and they bound him under the earth. This is our desire to not look at our pain. So that's why I keep stressing, it's not that you deny your pain. You have to face it. You have to face your pain. You have to face it unflinchingly, without self-judgment and without fear. But when you push your feelings down, it goes into your unconscious, and then your unconscious drives everything. And eventually your unconscious will release and destroy your life. So here Loki is driven down into under the earth, into the unconscious, and he's bound there. And his wife, Sigrun, she tries to help him because the gods put a snake above him so that poison was dripping on him and burning him. So she's sitting there with a bowl, gathering all of the poison, and then when she goes to throw it out, poison drops on him and he writhes in pain, which is an earthquake. That's you. You push all of your things into your unconscious mind. You don't have this problem. You don't have this feeling. You don't have this self-hatred. You don't have this, whatever the pain is, whatever the trauma is, you try and push it down. And at some point, you can't keep the pain from hitting you. And then the earthquake comes, which is you act out unconsciously, destructively towards yourself and others. All right, so she goes, she says, She saw bound form lying under the grove of springs, resembling the body of wily Loki. Sigrun sat there, not full of glee about her husband. Would you know more or not? Going on. A river falls from the east through poisoned valleys full of daggers and swords. Scabbard is its name. This is telling you that something is coming. Where? From the east. The realm of the east is the realm of your ego. So here we have your inconsistencies with your own ego. The whole world. We're not just you personally, but the whole world. We're talking about all of 3D reality, meaning that it's going to catch up. It's hidden. The narcissistic devaluation of the psychopathic elites has been hidden until now. And now it's all getting exposed. So this river comes from the east through poisoned valleys full of daggers and swords. Scabbard is its name. To the north stood on the plains of darkness a hall of gold, the legacy of dwarves. Another stood on Everwarm, the giant's beer hall. His name is Seaswell. She saw standing far from the sun, the soul. She saw standing far from the sun on the shore of the dead. Its door facing north, drops of poison drip in through the hatch. That hall is entwined with the ridged backs of serpents. So within our 3D reality, all of this treachery is waiting. And it's treachery within us, make no mistake. It's not out there somewhere, it's within us. And it has been in human society from the beginning. And it's making its way. It's been wriggling under the surface. And then it starts to overflow and make its way into our unmistakable reality. There she saw wading mighty currents of men of ill oath. So liars, murderous scavengers, and beguilers of another's, spouse. The beguiler of another's spouse. Whisperer of secrets. Dark striker sucked there on corpses of the departed. A wolf tore up men. So do you get what's happening? It's like it's all coming apart. You can't trust anybody, and nobody's doing anything that isn't destructive to other people. I just saw something yesterday, which I couldn't get out of my brain, which really messed me up. I'm on YouTube doing my thing. I'm doing my research and setting up, whenever I, do live streams, I like to do some research and come up with ideas. And so some of it means looking at other videos. And as I do that, YouTube throws up videos to look at. And I see this one video that's talking about hospitals just dumping patients onto the street. And I'm like, what? What is that? And sure enough, I don't know, it was some city in the South. Some news channel was investigating it. But they showed this one, it's very hard for me not to get emotional about it. She was obviously very old and incapable of taking care of herself. And it was 35 degrees outside. And they had dumped her literally across the street, on the sidewalk across the street. And she's still in her hospital gown. And she's, looks like she's dead. And somebody had taken a coat, I don't know whose it was, and just put it over her head and left her there. So they continued to watch the place, and sure enough, it happened again. Security guards take this woman on a walker, and they take her out. They escort her across the street and just dump her on the other side of the street. And they actually talked to this woman. This woman was like seriously ill. And of course, they did that to her because she didn't have any money. And I just, I kept on seeing in my head the picture of that first woman just lying on the pavement, freezing to death, unable to function, apparently had soiled herself, and she's across the street from a hospital. And, and then you think about stuff I can't talk about on YouTube, where I believe millions of people have been murdered over the past 3 years. Hospitals. the health industry. And I just started thinking to myself, how can this be? How can people who, I keep thinking of those security guards working at a hospital. How do they live with themselves? I mean, you're obviously making minimum wage. You can't be making a lot of money. And you're willing to follow the orders of somebody telling you, take this old lady who can't stand and is dying and just put her outside across the street. How can you live with yourself? I started thinking about these, this Ragnarok myth comes to mind now, of just people that have no decency within them. They can just live with like it's nothing. So again, back to the myth. There she saw, wading through mighty currents, men of ill oath and murderous scavengers, and the beguiler of another's spouse, whisperer of secrets. Dark striker sucked there on corpses of the departed. A wolf tore up men. Would you know more or not? Do you see these go together? The myth of Balder being killed goes right into then the release of all of this. You denying your soul and stuffing it down in here and buying into the third dimension and not honoring your divine godly self opens up the door for all kinds of stuff. Maybe you do something similar, maybe not in the same vein, but those people who, those minimum wage security guards who have no problem putting old people who clearly can't take care of themselves out on the street at night in the middle of winter. We all do that if we don't stay connected to our Balder, to our souls. Continuing on. There she saw wading mighty currents, men of ill oath and murderous scavengers, beguiler of another's, whisper of secrets, dark striker sucked there on corpses of the departed, blah, blah, blah. In the east, the old ogress sat in the iron wood, and there gave birth to the wolf's offspring. The wolf we're talking about is Fenris. Fenris, again, the myth tells us that that we had a hand in creating what is going on in this world. Humans have had a hand in this. So Fenris was the son of Loki and I don't know who else. And as a puppy, Fenris was the pet of the gods in Valhalla. He ran around and he played with everybody and they played with him. And then he started getting bigger and bigger and bigger and they couldn't control him anymore. And he got so powerful and so ravenous, he couldn't eat enough. If he opened up his jaws, he would have swallowed the whole universe. And this represents that emptiness, the black hole within humans. No matter how much sex, no matter how much alcohol, no matter how much drugs, no matter how much money, no matter how much fame, it just eats you up and destroys you. And we all have that. That's within us, the Fenris within us. And we tolerated it within ourselves until it became so big we couldn't tolerate it anymore. And so that's when the gods bound him. So when they talk about the wolf, that's what we're talking about. Talking about this Fenris the wolf. Going on. So in the east, the old ogress sat in ironwood and there gave birth to the wolf's offspring. Of them, a certain one will be made to devour the sun in a trollish guise. The sun is the soul. So that wolf aspect of you, and in Norse mythology, the wolf represents ravenous, black hole, going after things outside of yourself that can never fill you. All, connected to Loki, connected to Rahu, all of that. And then parts of that go to devour the sun, devouring your soul. Which goes on to say, the wolf fills with force of men fated to die, smears with red blood the gods' heavenly sight, S-I-T-E. The sunshine was black for summers after, the weather treacherous. Would you know more or not? She's setting you up that it's obvious that something is coming. We've known what? For how long? Ever since we got into the modern, world where, the world wasn't this big place. It became this small place. We traveled the whole world, colonized it, imperialized it. From that moment on, we knew that something was coming. We could all feel it. We all knew that our modern society was destined to destroy itself. She goes on to say, he sat on a mound there and smote a harp. The ogress's herder, gleeful Egther, howling to him in the nesting reeds a bright red rooster, its name Fjalar. Now there's a rooster who's crowing. What do roosters do? They wake you up. To the gods it howled, golden comb, who rouses the heroes of the warring father. But another howls beneath the earth, a crimson rooster in the halls of hell. That means that, normally we keep things in our unconscious that need to stay there. We try to become conscious, but we keep, this is a healthy thing. We keep all that crazy stuff deep in our unconscious where it belongs. Talk to our therapist, talk to our teacher, have dreams about it, but we don't act on it. We don't let it out. But now you've got a rooster that's crowing in the halls of the gods, which is your higher awareness. Your higher awareness is saying something is up. Wake up. And what used to be your unconscious is coming apart because now there's a rooster crowing in there and all of the garbage is coming out. If we talk about society as a person, then we've got the people who are awakened who are realizing something is up, and the people who aren't awake, they're free to do whatever they want. I'm watching what's going on in the cities in the United States. By the way, the United States is on its way out. It's going to be, the powers that be are on a path to completely destroy civilization, starting with the United States. And the World Economic Forum said that years ago. In that same, tweet where they said, you will own nothing and you will be happy, it went on to say that the United States will not be the main power of the earth, which means they had every intention of destroying the culture of the United States. And, they're in cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York. San Francisco, for instance, what used to be a really vibrant, profitable downtown is now a wasteland. All of the businesses are gone. People are being paid to be homeless. So you've got homeless alcoholics and drug addicts. The crime is rampant, and as you already know, people are getting let out. Murderers and killers and violent criminals are just being let out of prison without any, nothing stopping them. And this is done on purpose. This is being done on purpose. But this is what this is talking about. The people who are awake are waking up, and those that normally are kept away from society are now being released. They're waking up to do their thing. It's just things have gotten completely out of hand, and it's a dystopian nightmare what we're living. Okay, so to the gods it howled, golden comb, who rouses the heroes of the warring father. But another howls beneath the earth, a crimson rooster in the halls of hell. Garm barks loud by the gaping cave. Garm is a giant dog who lives at the gates of hell, of the underworld, and he's covered with blood. And it is, if I remember it correctly, one of the etymology of his name might be that he's covered in menstrual blood. The symbolism of that is, menstrual blood is an egg that wants to become a life, and it doesn't. And so there's that sadness of a life that didn't get to be. That is at the gates of hell, which is all of your regrets. What puts you in the underworld is your resentments all of the things you didn't get, all the things that you wanted, and you're full of rage and anger. And so, if you die that way, you go to the underworld until you can, get over yourself and move on and get to the higher realms. So Garm is sitting there at the gates of hell. Garm barks loud, so he's waking up. It's time to move. He's releasing everything out of the depths of hell, the depths of the unconscious. All the stuff that should be kept there is now coming out. Garm barks loud by gaping cave. The fetter will break and the wolf will run free. The wolf is Fenris. Fenris was bound up by the gods when they realized they couldn't control him, and that he was so ravenous he was going to swallow up the whole universe. And they bound him up with subtlety. They bound him up with, the sound of a cat's footfall. They bound him up with the lips of a chicken. Things that just don't exist. Subtlety, because you can't bind him with chains. Your addictions, if you try and force yourself to not indulge in your addictions will always break free. But what keeps you there is the subtlety of, on a daily basis. If you're alcoholic or a drug addict, I'm not going to drink or use today. You meditate, you work the steps, you look at yourself, and you know that you can never overcome that Fenris within you. But on a daily basis, with spirituality, which is subtlety, with discipline, you can keep it bound up for today. But if you don't, he'll break free and he will destroy your life. Your narcissistic, unquenchable desire for selfishness, your self-hatred will eventually consume you. So, Garm barks loud by a gaping cave, the fetter will break, and the wolf, Fenris, will run free. Lore she knows in plenty, talking about herself. I see beyond the future the mighty doom of the triumphant gods. She's talking about the death of the third dimension. And then she goes on to describe what we're living in now. Brothers will do battle unto the death. Sons of sisters fight their own family. The world has turned harsh. Great fornication, an axe age, a sword age. Shields are cleft, a storm age, a wolf age. Before the world tumbles, no man will ever spare another. I'm not going to get into specifics, but as I said, millions of people have been murdered and are being murdered unnecessarily. And people are being deceived into harming themselves in all kinds of ways. This is what I see, when I read that. We're living it now. Mimer's sons play while fate is kindled. By the blaring Gjallar horn, Heimdall blows loud his horn aloft, meaning that your highest awareness is saying, wake the hell up. Odin speaks with Mimer's head. So Odin, your awareness is now going into your deepest memory, and you are looking deep within. Odin is trying to figure a way out of this, your highest awareness. The ancient tree groans and the giant breaks loose, still standing. The ash Yggdrasil trembles. Garm barks loud by gaping cave. The fetter will break and the wolf will run free. This is repeating itself. Lord, she knows plenty. I see beyond the future the mighty doom of the triumphant gods. THRUGH drives from the east. The best I could find about the meaning of that word THRUGH means weakness. It could mean, like weak, disgusting, that kind of thing. Something like that. Like a body that's decomposing. THRUGH drives from the east, his shield before him. So all of this, destruction is coming. The mighty serpent writhes in gigantic fury. Now we get into the world serpent. And as you know, Thor and Jormungandr are constantly fighting each other. Jormungandr is the world serpent. It represents limitation, but it also represents the intellect. The intellect is what's keeping you from connecting to your emotions and connecting to the reality of the world. So, people who are listening to their intuition and realizing that this world isn't real, that this thing called the Mandela effect is real. That people are having dreams. They're connecting to higher dimensional beings. The veil between third dimension and higher dimensions is breaking open, and people are being aware of that. Jormungandr is that part of you that talks you out of that. That's the dualism within you that says something is good or bad, that gets you out of your feelings, that gets you out of your spiritual experience. It tries to limit you, because this is a very limiting place. You have to, when you come here, you have to choose to be limited. But the idea was to sort of do this very subtle dance between being limited in the third dimension but staying aware of your spiritual essence. But this is very hard to do. And so Jormungandr is kept at bay by Odin, Thor. Thor is a priest. Thor represents spiritual energy. As long as you're within your spiritual energy, that limitation doesn't consume you and crush you. But when you lose your spiritual connection, which is Thor, your defense against that, the dualism, it squeezes you and suffocates you. And these are people who can't believe in anything they don't see. These are people who can't believe of what's going on. I mean, I find it amazing that, on the news every single day, people are talking about the reality of extraterrestrials, but nobody seems to give a crap out there. Nobody's paying attention. Right? Jormungandr is just blinding you from that. So the snake, Hrym drives from the east, the mighty serpent writhes in gigantic fury. The snake thrashes the waves. Waves means emotions. So the more that he does that, people's emotions, people are flipping out. The snake thrashes the waves, and the eagle grows joyful. Pale beak plucks corpses. Nail ship breaks its moorings. Nail ship is a ship that is made from the fingernails of people who are clutching to the third dimension. And of course, it's, they're hanging on to their dualistic understanding by their fingernails. They're so attached to what they think life is. They're so attached to the third dimension that it tears their nails off. And these are the dead. These are the walking dead. That's what zombies represent. The reason why zombies are so frightening is because they represent people who are dead inside. And you become dead by what? You have an insatiable hunger. And what do zombies want? They want to eat human brains. They represent people who want to eat your consciousness because they don't have any. They're so devoid of consciousness, they want to feast on yours. There's a ship filled with these people, and it's called the nail ship, filled with the living dead. The ship comes from the east. Again, the ego. This all has to do with ego. The ship comes from the east. Muspel's band of giants will cross the seas with Loki steering. So now Loki has broken free. And he is now going to bring to people's consciousness the destruction they have wrought upon themselves. Loki isn't coming to destroy or harm anybody. Loki says it's time to wake up. And if what I'm seeing and hearing is true, which again, I don't need this to be true, I'm not attached to it, but if this idea is that there is a higher vibration of Earth, and this one that we're at is going to be destroyed, it means we have to choose to let go of this Earth and rise to the higher, like literally shift from this Earth to another one. That is a choice we will have to make. And Loki is simply finally bringing it all out in the open so that you will have to choose. You want to stay in what you think is the safety of the third dimension? You can choose to do that. But everyone will be given a choice. Do you want to shift to the next world, or do you want to stay here? Pick one or the other. Loki's driving the ship filled with all of the people who are going to choose to stay. All of the zombies whose fingernails have them attached to this three-dimensional world. The ship comes from the east. Muspel's bands of giants will cross the seas with Loki steering all the kin of folly with Loki steering. All the kin of folly, all the people associated with foolishness, will go with the wolf. They're making it very clear. They will choose to go with their insatiable lust for the third dimension. All the kin of folly will go with the wolf. Bylip's brother faring with them. And she asks, what's with the gods? What's with the elves? All the world of giants rumbles. All the high ones convene. So she's saying, all this stuff is going on earth. What is going on with the gods? What is going on with the beings of light? All of this stuff is going on. The giants are going crazy here. All the world of giants rumbles. The high ones convene. So that means the gods. The Aesir convene. Dwarves groan by their doors of rock. The wise cliff dwellers. I could go on now. I'm going to leave that alone for now, but I could talk about that. Surt comes from the south. Surt represents just the destruction that has to come. You know, everything that comes together, within it is the seeds of its own destruction. And so Surt is that deity from the south, the god of destruction. He's coming. So let's see, where was I? Surt comes from the south. His wood-eating fire. Wood represents energy, life force energy. So you know that feeling when you're around somebody and you feel like your energy is just getting pulled out of you? Sun glints on the sword of the godly warriors. Boulders slam together, sending trolls tumbling. Men tread the path of hell, and the heavens cleave. It says right there, the heavens are going to split in two. It's going to be two earths. The heavens cleave. So when Surt comes, this destructive force that's not being hidden by anything anywhere, people wake up. The godly warriors wake up. They go to war, which means that they realize that something has to happen. So my first instinct is to do what I can to save this earth. I'm getting more and more to the opinion that that's not possible. That the only way out is to shift up. And so that comes about because the gods wake up and they start fighting against the trolls, which is what's happening now. What's happening now is people are rising up against, you see it all over social media. Hollywood is getting itself just reamed because there is this unmistakable connection with the elite of Hollywood and this revelation of this worldwide child pornography, child trafficking ring. And interestingly enough, Hollywood doesn't want to support, this new film, The Sound of Freedom, is actually sabotaging it, and that's just very suspicious. So people are waking up. Those with consciousness are waking up, and they're trying to expose and fight against the evil in the world. And what's going to happen is that desire for you to create a better world is what lifts up another earth and brings it into existence. The heavens cleave. Then comes to pass Hlin's second woe, which is Frigga. So Frigga's first woe was watching Balder die. So the mother of the gods, which is you, the mother of you as a god, was very sad seeing you separated from your spiritual self. That was her first woe. The second one is coming. She says, then comes to pass Hlin's second woe, when Odin goes forth to fight the wolf Fenris. Higher awareness goes to defeat the insatiable lust of self-destruction. And they're telling you ahead of time he's not going to succeed, because that's going to be the second woe of Frigga. So then comes to pass Hlin's second woe, when Odin goes forth to fight the wolf, and Beli's bright slayer to face Surt. I believe that is Frey. Frey goes to fight Surt. Frigg's beloved god will fall dead then. So Odin, according to this, will be destroyed by, so higher awareness, if you choose to stay here, your higher awareness of the third dimension will be destroyed by the insatiable addiction of the third dimension. So if you decide, if you think you're going to stay here and you're going to stay conscious, you will not succeed. Odin is killed when he fights Fenrir. Then it repeats again. Garm barks loud by gaping cave. The fetter will break and the wolf will run free. Lore she knows in plenty. I see beyond the future the mighty doom of the triumphant gods. Then comes the great son of Victory Father, Vidar. Vidar means expansion. So this is like Vishnu. So then comes the great son of Victory Father, Vidar, to smite the carrion beast, which means Fenris. With his hands he thrusts his spear through the heart of Rager's son, avenging a father. So in Vedic mythology, Vishnu always shows up to heal the world from destruction. So here we have Odin. Remember, Odin is trying to stay connected to the third dimension because he confers with Mimer's head. Mimer represents memories of the past. Odin thinks he's going to hold on to this third dimension when he goes to fight Fenris, and that's his undoing. But the son of Odin, which is the expansive, Vishnu, the expansive life force energy of the gods, goes and is able to destroy because Vishnu isn't attached to the third dimension. Garm, again, it repeats itself. Garm barks loud by gaping cave. The fetter will break and the wolf will run free. Lore, she knows plenty. I see beyond the future the mighty doom of the triumphant gods. So this is just a refrain that keeps being repeated into a new one. Brothers will do battle unto the death. Sons of sisters fight their own kin. The world has turned harsh. So this is repeating itself again. An axe age, a sword age, shields are cleft, a storm age, a wolf age. Before the world tumbles, no man will spare another. Mimer's son play while the fate is kindled by the blaring. Okay, so I don't know why it's repeating itself here. I think maybe it was cut and pasted. Let's get to the end of that. Okay, then after Vidar kills Fenris and avenges Odin, then comes the famed son of Mother Earth, which is Thor. Odin's son goes forth to fight the beast Midgard's keeper, which is the world serpent. We already talked about that, the limitation. Hammers the serpent. All men strip clear their homes in the world. Earth's progeny moves 9 steps back. So that means after he kills the limitation of the world serpent, he only gets to go 9 paces and then he dies. People have likened that to 9 chakras in the body, etc., etc. There could be some symbolism I'm not aware of, but Thor, the priest, warrior priest, goes to destroy limitation, and when he kills limitation, he dies. So Thor, in the third dimension, that is his entire reason for existence. His entire reason for existence is to create a boundary between you and the limitation that seeks to choke you from your spiritual connection. So when he defeats it, Thor has no reason to exist in the third dimension anymore. When he destroys the serpent of Midgard. So it says, Earth's progeny moves 9 steps back and perishes by the serpent, unfearful of reproach, meaning he's got nothing. He fulfilled his purpose and he has no guilt or shame about that. He dies in peace because he knew he fulfilled his purpose. Goes on to say, the sun turns black and sinks into the sea. The bright stars vanish from the sky. Fire rages forth at the life-giving tree. meaning the tree of life, and high flame will lick at heaven itself. So if we ended there, it would be the end of everything. It would be the end of earth, the end of consciousness. There would be nothing left. But then she goes on to say, she sees arise a second time earth from the sea. So a second earth coming from the sea. The sea can mean the sea of space, the sea of emotion. You know, the sea is where life comes from. You know, it's the void. So she sees arise a second time from the void earth, evergreen, water cascades, the eagle soars above, catcher of fish on the mountainside. So eagles represent highest awareness. Fish represents you living and swimming in completely in your emotions. So this is a balance of the two. You have your awareness and you have your emotions all at the same time. The gods meet again on evergreen plain, reflect on the mighty earth-curling serpent, and recall there those ultimate deeds and the ancient secrets of the greatest gods' runes. So in this new earth, the gods will come together and they will think about what just happened and the events that happened that they survived and other gods didn't. Later will be found wondrously wrought golden chessmen, which in days of yore they had owned, which means they'll be able to relax and just enjoy themselves. That's people play chess when they're relaxed and they've got nothing to worry about. Goes on to say, unsown fields will grow up then. All sorrow will be lifted. Balder will return. Hode and Balder will thrive. Gods in the ruins of the Haler's Hall. So this means, it's saying that the earth is going to be free of pollution. The earth is going to be free to grow crops and it'll be healthy again. All sorrow will be lifted. If I take that literally, it means there won't be any sadness. There won't be any pain. I don't know about you, but I wake up every day and I have to wrestle with, painful feelings. And I have to, meditate and get my head together and focus on what's important. Because if I just listen to that, it could just drive me into a depression for no reason. Well, that's going to be gone. Apparently, there's going to be an earth where none of that will happen. People will be living in joy all the time. Sorrow will not be part of this new earth. Balder will return. That means that the soul will be able to experience itself without being hidden by the mind, by the brain, by the flesh. That means that you will be able to be your true self and operate 100% from your soul. And Hode and Balder will thrive. That means that you can still be innocent. You can have your innocence. Your innocence and your soul will be, there won't be any danger to either of you. Nobody will be able to come up like Loki did and deceive you into harming yourself. Hode and Balder will thrive, gods in the ruins of the Haler's Hall. Would you know more or not? Then Haenir will choose the soothsaying wood, and the sons of the two brothers will dwell in the wide wind's domain. I'm sure that's meaningful, but I don't know what that means. She sees a hall standing, fairer than the sun, bedecked with gold, leeward of the fire. Men of worth will dwell there, delighting in it forever after. So that means that those who chose to wake up, people who don't choose to wake up, it's not that they're not men of worth. It's just they haven't owned their worth. Every single person, including all of the psychopaths, if they chose to operate from their soul and chose to be different than how they act and how they respond, they would awaken. Everybody can awaken. There isn't anybody listening to me who can't awaken, no matter what your brain may tell you, no matter what your emotions may tell you. Every single person can choose to be one of the awakened. It doesn't mean right now that you have to be free of all of your uncomfortable feelings. So don't try and think you have to be perfect and be happy and joyous all the time. That's not what it means. It just means that you choose to awaken. You choose to face those things. And when the light of the solar wave hits you, you're going to go with it. And you're going to allow yourself to die to those attachments, die to the to the Fenris within you. You're willing to let go of that need to feel like you need to get more money, more fame, more love, more approval, more, whatever it is. You're going to die to that feeling that you need to survive by consuming everything in the third dimension. And then there's an interesting little verse here. It says, "Then the wielder of godly power descends in might, ruler of all things." So apparently there's going to be some divine king that's going to rule over Earth. I never would have thought that, but again, this was written a long time ago. Anyway, I can't comment on that at the moment. It goes on to say, "There the dim dragon will come in flight, the glittering serpent from dark mountains below, bearing corpses in its feathers as it soars over the plain, the dark striker, now she will sink down." So I'm not really sure what that means, but it sounds as though that negative force will now, go back where it belongs, back into the underworld, and won't be an issue on this new Earth. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts about that. I know it took me a long time to go through all of it, but again, I can't escape this feeling. I shouldn't say I can't escape the feeling. It's not that I have a feeling about it. It's just that this keeps coming to my mind. I have been told similar things by my ET friends, and I either, I wrestled with it and fought against it, and or didn't understand it. But there were times when they said things like, "We will come for you," meaning they're going to come and bring me to the new Earth. "We will come for you, and it will be as though you died to this world." I don't know if they're saying that, my physical body will be left here and my spirit will be up there. I don't know if they mean that. But numerous times they've come to me and said, "Are you ready to go? Are you willing to go?" And I've actually said, "Yes, take me now. I'm ready to go. Let's go." And I've felt the rush of energy, and I wake up and I'm still here. But it's sort of like practice, that at some point you're going to have to make the decision. You're going to go. And one person claims to have looked into the future and talked to her future self. And her future self said, yeah, one day, apparently in the next year, she gave the date of 2024, 2025, that one day coming very soon, she knew that this was a choice she had to make, and she sat down and she lit some candles and meditated and made the definite decision that she was going to shift. She was going to jump to the new reality, and she woke up, opened her eyes, and everything looked the same, but things were different. Everything was still the way it was, but it was different. It was brighter. There was a lightness about it. She went over and talked to her neighbors, and her neighbors said, yeah, welcome to the new Earth. Yeah, things are different. So I know that that's the case when it comes to manifestation. And as I understand it, the practice of manifestation is the same as choosing to shift into the new world, because what you're doing is you're manifesting a new reality. And that manifestation is a higher frequency of the one that you're in. And that's really all that manifestation is. I'm now living in a house that I imagined a year or so ago. And I went into meditation, and ET said, imagine exactly where you want to live. And I imagined exactly the kind of house where it was, all of it. And, I imagined a house on the side of a mountain right on, overlooking the ocean and surrounded by rainforest. And when I got here, I was, I bounced around to a couple different places, and one of the owners of one of the houses that I was, Airbnb I was renting, offered me to come and live in this house, for as long as I wanted, without having to sign a lease or put down a down payment. And when I saw the house, I went, oh my God. Just to give you an idea, this is, as I'm sitting here, this is what I'm looking at. You see all that? That's just outside, the forest outside my window there. And as I'm sitting here making this video, parrots are coming up. I feed their birds that I feed. And, sometimes the parrots will come, but the magpies come up because they want me to feed them. And there's a wallaby that, comes out from around the forest out there and hangs out in my backyard with her little Joey. And then you can't see it from here, but I can see the ocean, and right across the street there's this perfect little bay with, all of this forest. It's just everything I could have imagined. And I saw it. I imagined it, and I saw it, and I saw myself living in it. And then a year later, it just gets handed to me. So that is the process of manifestation. You want to manifest your perfect world? I mean that. Your absolute, total, perfect world. Something that is completely unbelievable. You want unicorns flying, and you want Skittles falling from the tree. Whatever you think that you truly want that's beyond your understanding, go into meditation. Do interdimensional meditation. Go to the light realm, the realm of the quantum field, and allow your imagination to create that which makes you the happiest. That little child in you that gives you the greatest joy. Go in and imagine that. And that's going to be where you're going to go. Not just a place, like I manifested a place on Earth, but now manifest an entire planet. The planet I'm going to go to. This is my plan anyway. There's not going to be any banks. There's not going to be any government. There's not going to be any weapons. There's not going to be any money. There's not going to be any strife. There's not even going to be roads. We're going to have our own little anti-grav, Jetson bubble things. We can go wherever we want and go anywhere we want in the universe. We're going to be connected to the life force energy. We'll be able to manifest that. The focus of our lives will be to increase our spiritual and energetic empowerment and awareness. Beings from other dimensions and other solar systems will come and go and visit with us. We'll go visit them. Everybody will love and take care of each other. Nobody will lack anything. Everybody will have anything they've ever wanted. I'll be able to surf, till my heart's content. I'll be able to teach people stuff that I try and teach now that a lot of people can't seem to get. I'll be able to teach it openly and freely, and people will be able to take it. It's everything that I could possibly imagine as completely now unrealistic but perfect. That's what I'm creating. You get to do the same. And when that time comes, it's going to be clear. Again, mainstream news is talking about the existence of extraterrestrials, just to let you know the strange world we live in. If that can happen, anything can happen. When you think of that perfect world and you've gone there numerous times and created it, there's going to come a point where you just get to shift over. Just get to go there. I don't need any of this to be true. This is what I have come to accept. And worst case scenario, the only thing that will come out of this is you'll learn how to manifest your perfect reality. There's no downside to taking this path and living this path. I recommend everybody watch the videos that I'm putting out on the 12 steps to shift to 5D. But don't just watch them, I can tell already from some of the comments there, people are watching them and they're not doing it. So when you look at step one, start with step one and spend time with that. And then when you're ready, move on to step two. And then when you're ready, move on to step three. And then after you've done all first three steps thoroughly, then do step four, and then do step five. Don't just go watch them and then dump comments and show your ignorance of not having done it. Do the work. That is the most powerful. If you combine the 12 steps that I'm teaching you here with, for instance, the 90-day challenge, I don't think there's anything else out there that can give you that level of ability to shift up. The only thing that would be missing from that is being able to interact with an actual teacher. And I recommend you find a teacher, a mentor, work with somebody. You know, there's ways that you can work directly with me if you go to thunderwizard.com and scroll around, but find somebody to work with and take this seriously. And it's okay if you're afraid. There's no more time to screw around and say, well, I'll do it later, or I have to prepare myself. There's no more time for that. The timeline, as I understand it, could be months to a couple of years, and that's all we've got. And if that's true, then there's no more screwing around. There's no more being lazy, no more being afraid. You got nothing to lose. The only thing that's going to happen is that you're going to evolve. It might be challenging and frightening, but you're going to be happier. Wouldn't you rather be happier? So those are my suggestions to you. So I'm only taking questions from people who are subscribed to the 90-day challenge. I'm not taking questions from anybody else, and I'm certainly not taking any questions that aren't directly associated with this video. So from now on, if you've been watching my channel and you want to leave a question, be a subscriber. If you're a subscriber, I'll answer your question, and make sure that your question is about what I'm talking about, not about something completely unrelated. You know, have respect for the teaching. I'll check and see if there's anybody on here, a subscriber, who has a question. Okay. I don't know if DC Pagan is a subscriber or not, but even so, I think I answered that question. All right, so it doesn't look like there's any questions here today, so very good. That's it. So sit with that, meditate on it. Here's the thing I've learned about this. When ETs come to me and they tell me something that is impossible for me to believe or accept, what I've learned to do to keep my sanity is that I accept it at face value, and then I don't try and figure it out. And while I'm accepting things at face value and not trying to figure it out, I am doing the energy work. I'm doing the step work. I just recently, I think it was recently, did another inventory, another fourth step, looking at my resentments. So the stuff I'm telling you to do, I've either done or I'm also doing. And I meditate on a daily basis, and I do energy work. And I keep, every time I meditate, I put effort into imagining and creating my perfect reality, my perfect earth. And I plan to go there. And when something comes into my mind and my first thought is, oh, I don't deserve that, or that's impossible, I stop and I go, no, that's obviously something I want. So I indulge my fantasy as far as it will take me. Again, you know, flying unicorns and trees that give out Skittles. I mean, let yourself imagine everything you could possibly want and do the work in the meantime. If you do those things, you'll be able to make the choice that you want to make when the time comes. Again, keep your eyes peeled, and if you haven't already, go search YouTube for Dr. Stephen Greer's. He's been interviewed on a few different channels. He's saying some really great stuff. Find out about what's really going on about that. And again, my books, Interdimensional Revolution and Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth. If you've read those books, please write a review, not just leave 5 stars, but write a review. And courses.thunderwizard.com if you want to see all the stuff that I make available to you. Go look at all the free playlists on the channel. And if you're dead serious and you're done with screwing around and you want the fast track to this shift and this awakening, go to thunderwizard.com, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Challenge, Lightning Qigong. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe whenever you want. You got nothing to lose. All right, my friends, that's it for me. I wish you all the best, and I will see you all very soon.